just want to start by thanking you, Sarah, for taking the time to chat with us here at the Christian Beat, all on your newest project titled A New Reality.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you guys today.
Absolutely. So I want to first start with just the title of the project and kind of the artwork that you've associated with it. And I just want to talk a little bit, hear your thoughts on, how that kind of encapsulates the project for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Have you actually seen the artwork?
I have seen some of it so far, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, oh man, it's a journey. That's a loaded question because there's so many things that I could talk about with it. A New Reality, though, that song was one of the first that I wrote for this project. And I wrote it really as a reminder to myself in the seasons when I'm not experiencing wonder, when I'm feeling mundane or just like the day in, day out, ness of life, when life be lifing or whatever, whatever Gen Z says these days. When it's just life is getting you down and you just aren't awake to the wonder and the presence of God around you, nature is what always brings me back. Nature is what always reminds me and grounds me again in the reality of God's presence in the world and his presence in my life, no matter what's happening. And so, yeah, that's really where that song came from. And this record, especially the artwork, we kind of wanted to make this, this epic. We went to Big Sur and we did all the artwork in this epic nature scene. And the basically the cover art, there we go, the cover art came to being because I wanted this like Narnia-esque kind of vibe to feel like I'm stepping out of one reality entering into another. And it really is this idea that like when I'm in nature it feels like I'm entering into a portal of divinity. Like I enter into this new reality of recognizing again that like God is so much more real and so much more present than anything I could ever imagine. It's unimaginable how present and how alive he is. He's in my breath, he's in this conversation, he's in the trees that I see and in the wind and then the light and all of these things. Like everything God is in. And so, yeah, that's the reality that I've really been awakened to, and I'm really grateful for that. And I hope that this record communicates that both through the artwork and through all the songs, you know?
Yep, absolutely. And I'm curious how much of that kind of evolved as you were creating versus how much of that you had in your mind up front.
Oh, yeah. Uh, well, it's so interesting because this record originally was going to be called Wonder because I was walking through a season of wonder, like real, just a new awakening of childlike wonder in my life. And it really came about because in COVID, my husband and I started taking walks in our neighborhood and really helped me ground myself and literally walked through the seasons in a year. I mean, I would just look at the trees every single day and see they're starting to, lose their leaves and now they're starting to get them back and like literally just like watching grass grow literally for a year essentially and recognizing his presence in my life. And so that was like where I originally started writing from is just this like epic, just wonder and awe and childlike, yeah, awe at the presence of God. And then on the flip side of that coin, I found myself in a season that I never expected, which is a season of really deep wondering and questioning and wrestling with faith. And like at the same time that I was experiencing his beauty and nature and his presence in such a real way, there was this time that I entered into where I was really wrestling and questioning and felt like the silence of God was deafening. And for the first time in my life, like really wrestling with questions and doubt. And so it's kind of this album is a mix of both. It's a mix of like songs that talk about the aspects of God that you just can't understand and that are a mystery. And what's such a gift about that is actually in the midst of of a time when I've been deeply questioning things, the mystery of God has been an answer in and of itself, like recognizing that there are just questions this side of heaven that I will never get answers to. And that's woven into creation, that's woven into my life. Like there are just things that I will never get the answers to. And learning how to wrestle with that and rest in that has been a part of this, a deep part of this journey. So this record really is that kind of journey, and it spreads the gamut of the human experience, which is, just true. It's just raw and honest. And yeah, I hope people experience both sides of that coin in this record when they listen to it.
Absolutely. Did you find a side of that harder to write or,
Mm.
easier to touch in different places? Or how was that when you were wrestling with both of that as you were working through it?
Yeah, um I would say the more honest songs weren't necessarily harder to write as much as it was just such a hard and painful season. And so to be honest about that, like in the co-writes that I was in, wasn't fun. Like it wasn't fun to be thinking, okay, as I go into this co-write, I have to tell them that I'm wrestling right now, that I'm not hearing from God. I don't know what to do with myself. I've never struggled with this before. And so even like finding myself having to be honest in those spaces was really hard for me. And I was met with nothing but mercy and kindness and people who were like, welcome to the club. This is the club of faith. If you've been in it long enough, you know that like some days are better than others, and some seasons you really can't hear God, and it's normal. Like literally just met with that over and over again. And it was such a, yeah, it was such a help to me to recognize like that I'm not alone in it. And it just like helped to propel the songs that we wrote from those places. And so it wasn't necessarily that either one was harder or easier. It was just more like that season was just really, really dark for me. And I'm just now kind of on the other side of that. I wouldn't say it's all resolved. It's just I'm on the other side of recognizing like I'm not in total despair anymore. I'm recognizing that the dark is normal and actually can be a friend to us and to our faith life. And God uses the dark just as much as the light. And so I'm trying to like find the hope in that and just take it day by day. But yeah, I would say both were yeah. Songwriting in general is just like complicated. You know what I mean? It's like some days are better than others. Some days feel like a download of a song, and some
Mhm.
days feel like you are wrestling it literally to the ground, just to make it through. So it just depends on the day and the people you're
No.
writing with.
No, that makes sense. And I'm curious with some of these being potentially some of the most vulnerable that you've been in songwriting and in this space in particular, how do you feel you're going to react as they're all released into the world in, next month? And as you start to get stories back and,
Yeah,
feedback, how do you think how are you gonna wrestle with that then?
yeah. That's a great question. I feel like releasing music is a little bit anticlimactic in that I have been writing these songs and thinking about these themes and wrestling with it and talking with my husband about it and all of the things for literally years now. I've just been, so it's this like anticipation building up to the release, and then release day happens and you're like, okay, it's not like you're in a room full of people who are then listening to them and giving you live feedback. And so it like songs take a while. You have to live with songs like
Mhm.
to experience it and to have like history with it. At least for me, that's how I am with other albums that I love. Like there are albums that have walked me through years of my life that I really love, and but like it takes a while. It's like a slow burn, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it is a little bit anticlimactic, but I'm ultimately really excited because I feel like for me, this record has saved my faith at points. Like it really has. It's been such a gift to me, listening back to it, like listening back to the mixes, and just feels like something that is beyond me and that God orchestrated without me even realizing it. Like I didn't anticipate this record, this collection of songs happening. I wrote over 70 songs for this record. I had no idea what we were going to whittle it down to. And Like I said in the beginning, like I thought it was called Wonder, but then it ended up being called A New Reality, which means multiple different things. Like in one way, it means, the reality of God's presence in the world. And another way, it means like this reality I found myself in wrestling with faith. And like even that is like, how did that happen? Like I didn't write that song thinking that I was going to walk through this season of questioning, so it's all just kind of like I up in the air and I have to surrender it constantly. And I'm really excited for people to be able to experience this record themselves and hopefully experience their faith life and their faith journey and recognizing like that they can be honest with God in their journey, in their ups and in their downs, and that this record becomes a companion for them like it has for me.
Absolutely. And I know you've released two tracks so far,
Yes.
No Filter and Still Yours. And you've already talked a little bit about how those kind of are the two sides that you're kind of talking about and some
Yeah.
in some aspects of it already. So how do you go about, choosing what messages you kind of want to lead prior to the whole project coming out? Because I know there's obviously some piece of that of what you think will work or whatever, but there's probably
Yeah.
a piece of it that you have a personal connection to as well.
Yeah, for sure. So when I wrote No Filter, I was like, that song is just for me. It's too vulnerable. I am not sharing that with anybody. I don't even want to share it with my label. I mean, I was like in a corner wanting to throw up. I was so, because it was so honest and vulnerable and yeah, it was just like the most like brutal honesty that I've had internally on a page right in front of me. And so I was like, yeah, that song is not coming out. And I showed it to my label. And then eventually they were like, I think that song needs to be the first one that you release. Like, this needs to lead the charge. And in fact, it's the first song on the record because I do feel like it gives context to the rest of it and just our humanity and the fact that we are messy people. We just are. Being a human is not easy. And there are good days and bad days with faith, and that is okay. I feel like there are so many of us who, at least for me, I've struggled in the past with wanting to like equate faith with wanting to learn how to be perfect in faith and do it right. And this is the way that you can be a faithful Christian. And these are the steps. And it's like, man, it's then life throws things at you like suffering or things that you never anticipated. And that doesn't necessarily compute with your perfect little way of doing faith. And for me, that's definitely been the case of just recognizing like this isn't how I thought it was going to be as an adult. There are things about life that are just really hard and make you question and make you unravel. But that's the journey of faith is like unraveling and raveling again, like death and resurrection over and over and over again, and recognizing that that's just a part of the process that God has woven into this world for some mysterious way, but it's such a beautiful thing because that means new life is on the horizon always, and that we're always being shaped and formed into a new creation in Him. And so, yeah, it's been all that to say that, wow, I really went down a rabbit trail there, but like I did not want to start this record in that way. I didn't anticipate that, but I'm so grateful that I did because it tells the story of being a human and trying to believe and wrestling and resting and all of the things. And that's really what this record is all about. It's kind of like my own collection of Psalms in a sense. The Psalms are all over the place. If you really look at them, one Psalm 23 is like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Psalm right before that, my God, why have you abandoned me? And everything in between. We see it over and over again in the Bible. We don't talk about it a lot in life because it's not pretty and it's not easy and it's messy and it's gross and it's complicated. But that's just the reality of the human life. And so I hope that people experience that in this record. I really do. I really, really do.
Absolutely. I'm curious what other tracks, obviously there's many more on the project. You have a personal tie to all of them, but are there any that like in this season that you're in now that you're really looking anticipating being out there. You're really, if it's a lyric, if it's a track that you're just really
Yeah.
looking toward.
There's a lot of them. It's like choosing between babies, It really
Sure.
is. It really is. There's so many that have meant so much to me in this past year. I know that everyone says that. I know every artist says that, like, oh, this record is the best thing I've ever made, and blah, 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 blah. But it truly is. And I really, when I said it earlier, like this record has been ministering back to me, I really mean that. And there's been different songs in different seasons. I mean, Human is such a powerful song to me. Giving Up is such a powerful song to me because it has two meanings to it. It's like a dual meaning. Um, a New Reality is so important to me because it's just such, like I said earlier, it's a reminder to get yourself back in nature and remember that you are a part of much bigger story that God is telling in the world. Glory Be is a song that I really pray the church is able to use. I wrote it as a corporate worship song based on a prayer that I memorized when I was a kid. And it's just this, it's such a simple prayer, but it says all that you need to say. And yeah, I hope and pray that people are able to use that like in their churches. I've already been using it when I lead worship, and people have been asking me for a year now, when can I get that song? So they're going to be able to get that song in May and hopefully be able to use it in their own church spaces and circles, and even in maybe in their own homes when people gather and they can sing that song together. So there's a lot of songs on this record, from corporate worship songs to just songs that I hope people can use in a contemplative way. And when they're driving down the street, and they can just be listening to it and think about their own life in relation to it. So yeah, there's a lot. I'm really excited for this record to come out. I really am.
No, that's awesome. I'm excited as well. We're getting close to time, so I'll close with just this one final opportunity for you to share kind of your prayer behind this music and what you hope people and those who come in contact with this music are really able to hear and feel in their heart.
Man, that's a really great question. I pray that people, I mean, I probably said this multiple times throughout the conversation, but I do pray that people are able to hear the honesty in it and are able to be encouraged to bring their own honest selves, questioning selves, doubting selves to God, and recognize that it is normal, that it's a part of the process, that it's not shameful to wrestle with faith and to wrestle for faith, and that faith actually is, in and of itself, believing in what you cannot see over and over and over again. Um, and so I hope and pray that this record sets the stage for that, sets the stage for people to bring their honest selves to God and hear the hope that He provides us in the fact that there is new life always. At the end of this, there's always new life. So yeah, I hope and pray that people experience that.